manure. So in the organic system, you can apply uncomposted manure, which you wouldn't really want to do, but we're using that definition of composted manure very much as what I've just described, that we have to meet that 15 days between 131 and 170 degrees. So that would be considered composted. If you did not meet that, then it's considered uncomposted. And you can apply that to vegetables that are not coming in touch with the ground and aren't going to be splashed up. Depending on if it rains, it's not going to splash up on them. So we've kind of changed how we do a lot of different things in our system since these rules came about, and when the contamination happened that changed other food safety regulations, they also certainly affected the organic certification process, and with that have made it just more documentation and proving that we care enough to reduce contamination in any way, shape, or form. We use a fair amount of worm composted manure because we have zillions of red worms in our compost pile because they like it there, and that goes along. We have to comply with the same 120 and 90-day rules. I mean, it's pretty clear. You get a compost thermometer in there and you pay close attention with that. When you're using aged, not composted manure, you can reduce the potential for contamination by never applying that manure to growing food crops, which very rarely would you ever do that anyways. You're going to apply it in the spring or the fall, either before you've planted or after to let it overwinter. And we end up doing most of our applications in the fall now, which gives us that plenty of time, the 120-day rule, to take us to where we need to meet that regulation. And let's see, and ideally the fall application is the way to allow the longest period from application to harvest, and it keeps us safe. It's best to never leave that manure on the soil surface where it can have direct contact with the crop, so always mix it into the soil. And side dressing, if you have a composted product, is fine, but if it's not fully composted, you need to make sure you mix it into the soil. And this will help reduce the E. coli contamination when you're using composted manure. And I wanted to just mention using commercially heat-treated manure products. They have the same, if you were going to buy bagged steer manure or some kind of bagged product like that, they have the same unrestricted use as high temperature compost. The way to be sure that the product you're buying would meet that need as far as the national organic standards would be to purchase a bagged commercial product, manure product that is OMRI approved. That's OMRI, which stands for the Organic Materials Review Institute. And for the organic gardening sessions that I teach, I'm always encouraging people, if they're going to buy potting soil or anything, if organic matters to you, buy things that have the OMRI label on them, and then you can be assured that it meets the organic certification standards. I love this picture of the woman selling worm tea. This was at a farmer's market up in Bonners Ferry. It has, remember that manure tea and compost tea have the same regulations and restrictions with the high temperature. It's all about that contamination issue, so you need to be aware of that. I don't think I've ever seen anybody selling worm tea or compost tea or manure tea other than this lady. But one of the things that I wanted to mention here before I open for questions. After applying manure to your garden, turning your compost pile, or doing any number of manure-related activities, it's important that you wash your hands before handling vegetables. It's important that you keep the tools that you're using that are in direct contact with the manure are not the same tools that you're using for harvesting crops. Like, you might put manure or composted manure in buckets and then use gloves in those buckets, and then later use that same bucket that you hauled the manure in to harvest vegetables in. Not a good idea. That's a point of cross-contamination, and you certainly want to avoid that at all costs. So hopefully this information is helpful to you, and I guess I will open up to questions, and if there were questions that didn't get answered for Glenn, we can open up for him as well.
All right, thank you, Diane. We actually have a lot of questions, so I'll jump right in. This first question is for Ron, and he said, you said 1 tablespoon of bleach per gallon is the maximum for sanitizing. He was wondering if you meant the minimum.
The regs state 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. So more is not better. So it would be it's a minimum and a maximum, I guess. It meets both those needs. It's very clear in the sanitation aspects that it's no more or less than 1 tablespoon per gallon. So that's what I meant.
Okay, thank you. Lori has a question about water. She says, did you need special hoses for your water, and do you have your water monitored?
We do not use special hoses. We do, whenever we go to fill containers for processing our produce, we let the water run for a while, run clear. Well, not run clear, it's all great water, but we let it run until the hose is empty, so we'll let it run for maybe a couple minutes so we're not using the water that's been sitting in the hose. As far as water tests, we are required by the organic standards to have our well tested I think it's every 3 years or more. And it's in our application process. It always asks when's the last time we had our water tested, and we do have a shallow well, which is more common to have. The potential for contamination is greater on a shallow well than a deep well, which makes sense to me. Our well was hand dug by a neighbor about 30 years ago, and he told me when he dug it, he just started hand digging, and when he got down to about 35 feet, he hit an artesian, and the water started pouring in. They put in a concrete blocks, and that's the well that we've been using ever since. And excuse me, we've had that tested. Like I say, we'll do it about every 3 years, and it's always been clean and pure and fine. With that, we are very isolated. We have 360 acres of private roadless behind our property, and we have 360 acres of private roadless across the road from us. And so there's very little chance of cross-contamination. If we had more activities going on near our farm, I'm sure they would require us specifically to have more frequent water tests. To protect our water, one of the things we do, you saw that large compost pile, that's a distance from our well, of course, but we put down, we have all this excess greenhouse plastic because we use a lot of season extension. The old greenhouse plastic, when we rotate that out, oftentimes gets used for things like under our compost pile that's all plastic, so it doesn't leach into the ground, into our water system, so we protect that way. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Ron says that they process their vegetables out in the field where hot water is not available, and he's wondering if it's okay to wash hands with soap and cold water.
I believe, from what I remember of the health regulations, as long as it is what they refer to as potable water, meaning it's water that you could drink, that's assured to be safe. So you process your vegetables out in the field, so you have like a portable sink or something. I'm curious how you would do that. So I think the answer to that is, as long as you're washing your hands, yes, and it's potable water, because with the health regs, if I were selling a food product, like there's a guy that sets up next to us at the farmer's market that sells lamb sausages and lamb kebabs. He has a 5-gallon container, potable water, with a bucket under it, so it will catch the soapy water when used, and as long as it's set up so you can turn that water on and it's free flowing, you can take soap to your hands and wash your hands under that, and the soapy water that's coming off of your hands goes directly into a bucket. I believe that meets that need.
Thank you. Lori has another question. She's wondering where is a good source for ice chests that meet the standards for keeping things cold.
Well, this time of year you're seeing those big ice chests like what you saw in the photographs are, what do they run? They probably run between $70 and $90. They're I'm not exactly sure what the size of those is, but as long as you get a good ice chest, I don't know that I haven't seen anything that says a standard that the ice chest has to be this way or that way. I mean, ideally, if you're going to invest in ice chest, you want to invest in something that's going to keep it cold. We've experimented with a number of different ways of keeping our vegetables, our produce, cold from farm to market, and that market might be the farmer's market, the restaurants, or the natural food stores. And what we do is we have lots of blue ice. We put on those giant ice chests, we put 3 blue ice on the bottom, and then we have thin styrofoam that goes on top of that, because most produce does not want to be in contact with ice. It will damage the membranes in it and cause some problems. So I'm always on the lookout for sales on ice chests, but what I found with the large ice chests that we have 5 of those giant ice chests. I don't know what size they are, but I've had them, the same ice chest, for probably 20 years, and we keep those cleaned out. Same thing, we clean them out with 1 tablespoon of bleach per gallon of water, and I'll just put 1 in there, rinse that out, wash it out, rinse it out, and keep that clean. And I mean, once you make that investment, those ice chests will last darn near forever unless you drive over one. So sorry, I can't really give you an outlet, but you can find them in just anywhere where there's camping supplies.